Day 2015 and Nicolazzo 2017 both argue we must aid communities that are most vulnerable by using the notion of trickling up. Through a trickle-up approach, a ripple effect is created by helping the people most vulnerable, which eventually lead to the aid of those that are less in need by association. It can be argued that the trans community is one of the most vulnerable communities within society and higher education. Nicolazzo 2017 explained that a current issue with the trans community is one called the trans paradox, which means that trans people are socially visible, but are invisible in educational research. Therefore, we will discuss how Northern Illinois University's current housing assignment practice is reinforcing current assumptions of gender, how the policy can be transformed to make it more gender inclusive, and what other colleges are currently doing to transform their housing assignment policy. How does the current NIU policy reinforce normative assumptions of gender?
NIU's current housing assignment policy is more verbal than written. The NIU website had nothing written on how rooms were assigned. On the other hand, the NIU 2016 handbook states that the university does not discriminate against anyone and that NIU welcomes different types of identities. Molly Holmes, director of the Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Resource Center and Women's Resource Center, provided information regarding the current policy for gender in housing. Holmes said that, although not officially written, assignments into rooms fall under the gender binary, mentioning that women are only paired with women and men with men. This leads to the question, what about the students that identify with the trans community or identify outside of the binary system? As Nicolazzo 2017 stated, language and categorization is not neutral, yet we must come together to try and understand how these things show privilege towards some identities over others.
The binary nature of placement disregards the experiences of non-gender binary students and trans students. By not validating the gender of trans students, the policy acts as a catalyst for negative campus experiences, making them feel unwelcomed in their institutions, further marginalizing the student population, and making them feel like they do not belong, as demonstrated in Hernandez 2002. Maggie Hitchcock, a student at NIU, spoke of how several of her friends were uncomfortable being placed with a wrong gender roommate and felt unsafe using the restrooms ascribed to them. This dissonance has caused too many trans students to constantly switch rooms, or in some cases has led them to leave the institution.
Within housing, the issue with bathrooms in a gender binary placement practice can be conflicting for trans students when requesting these accommodations. As Holmes pointed out, there may be issues regarding the importance of who gets the American with Disabilities Act or ADA bathrooms because there are limited amounts of them in the residence halls and multiple people with disabilities and/or trans students requesting these restrooms. The issue may become more complex when thinking which residence hall students must be forced to choose because of their needs. This practice forces trans students to out themselves to administrators in order to receive their accommodations. As Nicolazzo 2017 stated, providing gender-inclusive restrooms in what may be considered a trans-inclusive housing reestablishes the continuing issue of trans injustice in all other restrooms across campus.
The university enforces gender binary views by assigning students by their ascribed gender, unless through special requests for accommodations made through Holmes, furthering trans oppression. Holmes mentioned that trans students who may be looking for specific needs usually email her early on in the process of choosing rooms, but may not always ask for accommodations due to not wanting to disclose their identity as a trans student and being marked as such in their paperwork. Ultimately, this might cause many students to opt out of even considering to live on campus.
Furthermore, Holmes must fill out a form for housing in order for students to receive accommodations such as private bathrooms or getting their own rooms. Holmes also stated that when this form is filled out, it gives the students automatic preference, no questions asked. Yet, the automatic preference comes with a price. Students would have to pay for getting their own bathrooms, which shows that because of their accommodations, students are still being used as financial tokens for the university.
How can the current NIU housing policy be modified to make students of all genders feel welcomed?
Holmes mentioned some institutions like Northwestern University are breaking through gender binary norms by creating gender-open housing options in which individuals with different gender identities are able to be assigned by their gender instead of their sex. Northwestern has multiple open gender housing options and has availability for undergraduate and graduate students alike. Northwestern has even incorporated gender-neutral bathrooms to the designated floors, both single-stalled one-person bathrooms and communal bathrooms.
Gender-inclusive housing at NIU can be seen within the LGBTQA Living Learning Community, or LLC, located in one of the clusters of New Residence Hall. The LLC is for anyone that identifies within the LGBTQA spectrum. This LLC houses 24 people and...
But wait, there's only one cluster. That means only 12 people can be part of the LLC, not 24.
So the space is even smaller?
Yep. Hitchcock used to live at the LGBTQA LLC and is now the community advisor, or CA, of the cluster. She mentioned that though the cluster lifestyle provides security and community for the students that are a part of it, she felt it was too small and cost prohibitive to many. She spoke of how she had to apply for the cluster and that she knew of others that, though wanted to join, were unfortunately turned away due to the limited space or could not continue being a part of it due to the high costs. As a student, it gave her the community of peers that she felt she could be free in and not looked down upon, because all those around her were having the same or similar experiences. Hitchcock works to program for her cluster and mentioned the family aspect that this community has is immeasurable to having a support much like the kinship networks described in Nicolazzo 2017. This support is especially valuable for trans students, as through this community a family atmosphere can be attained.
So if there is interest in the LLC, why are people being turned away?
Not sure, though. If this is true, why not fill the whole 24 students that are available to the CA in Newhall?
What about changing the place? Is there a more economic residence hall at NIU that could still function in the program?
Maybe. There are other residence halls that could emulate the gender-open housing options of Northwestern. Instead of having students apply, administrators can have the question as part of the regular contract if they wish to be a part of the floor, eliminating the need for trans students to out themselves to administrators to get accommodations.
To conclude, we should focus on educating what gender is to unlearn the biases created from society. NIU can work on making floors gender open by choosing cheaper locations to make it accessible for all students. Nicolazzo 2017 states that even with advancements, we shall continue asking ourselves what kind of changes we can make to stop trans oppression in higher education.